1 o'clock on Tuesday here. One of our most popular shows. Jackie is out for a few weeks, and we've upgraded from Jackie to another Canadian, Kathleen McIntosh. How are you doing, Kathleen?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. I give Jackie a hard time because she's been very popular in the show that we've done for like 7 or 8 weeks now. And my male ego, I want it to be all about me. It's becoming all about her. So I'm trying to make her look bad as much as possible. But
well, that's okay. You got some masculine energy over here.
There you go.
Jackie and I are good together. She's my feminine energy.
There you go. So Kathleen is filling in. She also has a company called Kathleen McIntosh Hypnotherapy. Is that correct? And
that's it. Yeah.
And that would be your website as well. Kathleen.
You can find me on Google. Just Google that, or just Google Kathleen McIntosh, and it should come up. I'm in Kamloops, British Columbia, Canada. Another fellow Canadian.
Get out, eh? Out and about. There you go. So you and Jackie met at school. You were down in New Mexico, correct? Is that where you were?
Yeah, we were at the Hypnotherapy Academy of America where we did our training, and we met in 2020. It's good. And the relationship's just carried on since then, and we've remained good friends.
She's a sweetheart of a girl, too. You've got quite a personality yourself, though. We were talking before the show here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm actually here with, there was 5 of us students that were at the conference in Vegas that I'm at right now for the hypnotherapy conference. And 5 of us that were at school together at the academy are here. And unfortunately, Jack wasn't able to make it. But I know she's coming next year because it's a good time.
So some of our listeners here are really they try to be funny here, Kathleen. Is she related to the apple? I'm sure you've never heard that joke before. You've never heard that. Never heard that.
Well, the funny thing is that my maiden name is McMaster, so I kind of like the MCs.
There you go. So you were in the food industry before you got into this and decided you want to make a career change. That's pretty cool. I mean, I don't mean to say I'm not doing insult.
Hey. I always tell people that, as a bartender for 20 years, you're kind of in psychotherapy already, right? I mean, people come into the bar to shed their problems and talk to you about a lot of things. And so I felt like it was honestly a pretty natural shift for me.
Yeah. So you did some research, and hypnotherapy kept popping up on your computer when you're searching around for things to do. And that's cool.
Yeah. Well, with my daughters, what really I was looking for a career change, but at the same time I was trying to find some, help for my daughters who had both suffered sexual assaults. And I was trying to find a therapy that was good for that. And hypnotherapy kept popping up. So as I was trying to find something for my daughters, I was like, well, maybe this is what I was just fascinated by the mind and how things worked. So that's what led me down that path.
And you were telling me that you can't treat your family members, correct?
No. A lot of issues people have actually stem from childhood. Bruce Lipton, I love the man, but he talks about how the brain is basically wide open. The subconscious is like a big computer, and from just before birth, and usually they're saying 3rd trimester till about 7 years old, everything that happens around a child is programmed as a belief, as a feeling. What's happening with their parents, teachers, grandparents, siblings, everything is programmed. So if you don't have a great family life, there can be a lot of negative things programmed at that time. And we don't really start to develop our conscious mind until from 7 to 11. So it's really important to understand that a lot of the things that we're programmed, you think of your phone and we get an update, once a month, update these apps, update this operating system, update. When did we get the manual to update the programming that we were given as a child? So a lot of things can stem back to that. Traumatic experiences can be automatically imprinted on the subconscious. And then what happens is then our life just kind of runs those programs. So,
but you can change that though, right? Jackie and I had this conversation as well. You put it a little different way, same facts, different language, but so you can train your mind to overcome those things, correct?
You can. And I think because hypnosis, when you're in hypnosis, you're really communicating with the subconscious mind versus the conscious mind. So that's where the original programming took place. So when in a state of hypnosis, we can do the reprogramming there. And I know people have misconceptions of that, but we actually ask the client, what is it you want instead of what's happening in your life right now? And when they tell you that, then we basically just figure out, well, where's the old program coming from? We try to diminish the emotional content around that and then put a new program that they want. Like, I want to quit smoking, or I want to be more active. Okay, so we just program, I am more active, as if it's happening already.
And Jackie was saying that like addictions, like alcoholism, a lot of that stems from a child, those things that happens to the child at that age too, correct?
Yes, I don't know if people are familiar with a gentleman called, his name Dr. Gabor Mate, and he's actually he lives in Vancouver. He's a Canadian now. He's from Hungary originally, but he put out a movie called The Wisdom of Trauma, and there was a couple of us that did some of his training. And yes, he would say 100% of addiction comes from trauma.
Oh, really? Do you believe that? Do you believe it's 100%?
I do believe that, because I believe that what addiction, they're trying to fill a need that's not being met in their life. And we have what's called 9 human givens, and they're the needs that we have: community, connection, intimacy, creativity, growth, those things that sometimes people who spend a lot of time alone, or maybe are introverted, they may not be able to meet those needs. Even people that are extroverted, there may be a lack.
We're losing Kathleen here a little bit. We're talking about addiction.
Their deepest, darkest secrets with. So there's an area in our needs that isn't being met that usually drives us to addiction, or beliefs about ourselves.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You said there was 9. Say that again. There's a certain number.
There was a study, and it was called the human givens. Like, that saying, oh, that's a given, right? Like it's something that we absolutely need to survive. We have to meet these 9 emotional needs. They're outside of, there's the basic needs of food, shelter, but these are the emotional needs that we have to have met. And so lots of times in my therapy, I bring up that list for clients so that I can say, hey, is there an area in here where you might need to work towards, maybe getting together with a friend, or going on a Zoom with a friend, or having a coffee, or going out for dinner, or connecting with somebody. Or maybe if you don't have those people in your life, maybe we can find a way to get you involved in a group, or what are your interests? And so outside of the hypnotherapy, I'm also trying to focus on making sure they're meeting those emotional needs, because that's huge. It's the foundation for our mental health.
Yeah, I've never heard
those needs.
I've never heard that put that way.
Well, I'll tell you what, when we're done, I will make sure to send you there's 2 documents I have on it that I can send to you, right, just for reference for the future.
Oh, that's very cool. I'm learning a lot from you, Jackie. I swear to God, I know it sounds kind of funny.
Well, I'm Kathleen, but I know you're used to saying Jackie.
No, I think I said you and Jackie. Yeah, you and Jackie. I said both.
Oh.
Yeah, no, seriously, the whole thing that you just talked about, from maybe the 3rd trimester to 7 years old, is where those formative years are. I guess I kind of in general understood that, but not in the exact terms that it's really been studied like that. That's very interesting.
Well, there's a great YouTube video on that. If anyone wants it, I'll also send you the link to that. It's Bruce Lipton, and I think the title of it is Programming the Subconscious Mind. And it's like 11 minutes. He speaks really fast, so you might have to watch it a couple times to get the understanding.
I believe in this stuff so much. I keep trying to train my brain more all the time. So one of my tests for the summer is that I'm going without air conditioning in my home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm, and what the funny thing is, like, I've gotten to the point where I just say, I'm not even going to make a big deal about it. Like, I'm not going to sit there and say, oh God, I'm hot. I wish I could turn the air on. I just say, I'm using it, because I remember back, my parents never had any air conditioning their whole lives in any house.
Right. And we all survived, didn't we?
Yeah. I think the only thing is, there's a lot of things in our lives like that we just kind of get conditioned to make a big deal about it. Like, it's Monday. Oh my God. Everybody gets so down about Monday, instead of just saying, it's another day of the week. Right.
See, as a bartender, Monday was a great day, because I usually got Sunday, Mondays off, because they were the slowest days of the week. So, and that's another thing about hypnotherapy, right? really we need to tell a new story. We need to create a new narrative, a new perspective. I honestly believe that's what I do. I just create new perspective or assist the client to see a situation in a different way. Well, maybe it doesn't mean that. What if it meant this?
Right.
What if you could just tell yourself it's a new story?
Yeah, see, that's the thing that I believe that more and more all the time, that it's just we're telling ourselves something. It's the negative. In the negative sense, we're telling ourselves something to make it into a negative. Like you're saying with your patients or clients, that same story you're spinning around and say, well, it really isn't that bad, right? I mean, like living without air conditioning really isn't that big of a deal. And that's the way I look at things. Yeah. Well,
and if you take it one step further, one of the ways we program the subconscious mind is with repetition. So when we're, some professionals in this field would say, I'm actually taking the client out of hypnosis because they've been hypnotizing themselves to believe this thing by repeating that same story over and over. They've programmed the subconscious to believe that. So really, we're just taking them out of trance, right? They've been walking around in life in this trance, and we're just going to open that up with new perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is going to sound a little bit arrogant. I don't mean it in an arrogant way, but I've over the years now, I've told myself, I built myself this magical world, and I love myself so much more. I don't allow people to disrespect me. If I don't get mad about it, if somebody wants to disrespect me, I just say, listen, you don't get to live in my magical world, and I'll just move on.
But that's a brilliant brain set, right? Yeah. And if everyone could understand that we are the ones who have all the power, it's no one can make us feel any way. They can do things. And we cannot change the past. Don't get me wrong. We cannot change the past. The only thing we can do is change perspective. And there's great power in forgiveness and acceptance. And it's an ability to be able to get there that is really powerful. But it does take some work. I know people think hypnotherapy it's a one and done. We're all good, but there's still processes. You still have to do some work after that, right?
Like if you want to get stronger muscles, you go in the gym. You can't just go in the gym one time. You've got to keep going to the gym. It's the same thing with your mind. You just keep on working on yourself all the time. Like my big thing is I will never be perfect, because tomorrow I want to get better than I was yesterday. So there is no perfect. I just keep trying to get better all the time. And
we're always growing, because if we aren't growing, we're dying, right? There's only two ways we can go in this world, right? Yeah. So this is why that's one of our emotional needs is to grow, learn. My father was a school principal, so he was learning right till the end of his life, because information and education of any kind, whatever it is, whatever you're passionate about, this is something that will bring joy to your life.
And don't you think that's why some people get themselves in trouble, especially as they get older, because they stop learning, stop moving? They just kind of say, okay, this is it for me.
They don't have their purpose. Some people's purpose is their career, their job. Even the jobs where it may be considered, blue collar, menial, whatever, but there's a whole environment around that is their purpose. It's not the job they do where they find the purpose. It's the interaction with the individuals that they may work with, or it's the taking pride in their work that gives their life purpose. Even if it's cleaning. I'm in a hotel room right now, so let's use that as an example. When the maid comes in and it's a bit of a disaster, and I'm like Captain Chaos, when the maid comes in and cleans up the room and she looks at it after she came in, there's some pride in that.
Yeah, totally.
And knows that probably when I walk in, I'm going to go, oh, thank you, maid. Like, I'm so glad you came and cleaned my room, and just being grateful for the people in the service industry. Just throwing that out there, because, I always see people getting all uptight with somebody in service. Be kind and compassionate.
But it's true, though. So I have this thing where I have to make my bed perfect in the morning before I leave the room. There's this Admiral William McCraven did a speech at a graduating class at the University of Texas.
I've heard it.
Yeah. Fantastic. And for me, it's just like you talked about. So when I make my bed, like I don't make myself do this, but I turn around and look as I'm walking out the door at the bed. Like it's an immediate reaction. Like, wow, that's pretty cool. It's 3:30 in the morning. I didn't have to make the bed, and there it is.
Well, but The funny thing is my roommate while we're here, who is also a fellow student and a dear friend of mine, Sage Shenanigans from North Carolina, she's military, and she has to, we've learned to live in each other's space.
Okay, that's fun. That's good. So here's a good question. Doug DeVito is a follower of ours, friend of ours. He's asking a question here. Can you explain why we dream the things we dream?
Oh, yes, that's a great question. So dreams aren't my field, but what I have understood through what I have learned in the field of just mental health, and how the brain works is we create a bunch of what's called emotional arousal during the day. How to describe that? Emotional arousals, all those thoughts, that ruminating on things that we're thinking about all day long. So when we go to bed at night, that dream cycle of the sleep cycle, the REM, it's meant to close down all those emotional arousals that we created during the day. So although the thing we were thinking about might be one thing, the dream may be a completely different representation of that. For instance, the example that I was given when being told or taught about this was, let's say you've got a mother-in-law and she comes to visit. She just likes to kind of take over, right? And you have your systems, but you let her do her thing because she's only there for a bit. But you go to bed that night because you're thinking, God, just get me to the end of the week. Or this is for those of you that have one of those mother-in-laws. And then the woman goes to bed and she dreams that she's on a ship and there's a lot of things going on. And it's one that has I don't even know what it's called, the wheel of the ship. And all of a sudden there's somebody there that's trying to take it away from her. And she basically pushes them overboard. And she maintains control of the ship. And so that was just a really extreme example of how a dream. And the funny thing was that the woman had seen a show on, it was either the America's Cup she was watching or something. Something in her recent memory was about sailing. So the brain put together, oh, we could use that and we could use that and we could use that to create a way to close out this emotional arousal for her where she was the champion of her own life, right? So that's one way that a dream can help us to close out that stuff that we've created in our life. So the interesting thing is someone that's suffering depression or anxiety, the studies have shown through brain chemistry or brain waves that they actually are in REM 3 times longer or up to 3 times longer than someone who isn't suffering from anxiety and depression. And the reason being is they've ruminated on so many things during the day that the dream cycle just has to keep going. This is also why when you have depression and you've slept for 10 hours, you wake up and you feel exhausted because you haven't got into those deep sleep cycles. You've been in the REM so much of your night and you've been battling and fighting things. And although you're not moving, the body still feels like it did all those things. So you wake up just feeling like you didn't even sleep.
Wow, that's amazing. So I have a couple of recurring dreams. One dream is that I'm flying. There's no plane. It's just me flying. And while I'm flying, I'm wondering, how am I flying? How am I doing this? And it happens all the time. The other one is that there's a room full of kids in a classroom and everybody's standing around and police are there and everything. And I come driving up like the hero, drive my truck through the door, kick the door down and save them from the bad people. And it's over and over and over it happens. And I never seem to finish the dream. It never, never get the kids out of the room. I never land when I'm flying. It's the same all the time.
Well, that part I can't, I'm not, like I said, a dream specialist. Right. A dream specialist may have more insight into that, but just from what I hear, even just about the school kids, and you mentioned this about your magical world, you live in a world where no one's going to disrespect you and you are the authority in your life. And so both of those examples, flying, I don't know, Superman, maybe you got Superman complex. I don't know.
It could be.
That's what came to mind when you said I'm always flying. I'm like, Superman. You come across as someone who's really confident. So that's maybe your way of just remembering that you're your own Superman. And the other one with the kids, I feel like maybe you're doing a podcast to help others, right? And so that's part of your personality, even from the conversation we had earlier, that That's part of who you are, is wanting
When
to
I
assist
was
people.
when I was on Survivor, I've told the story before, but I'll tell you, they bring us in LA but for about 5 days before the show, and we do all kinds of psychological testing and everything. And at the end of the 5 days, they bring you in and they give the evaluation of the testing. And this really nice woman sits down, and first thing she says is, I was a sheepdog, that I was always trying to protect everybody. I said, well, I guess it makes sense. I was an assistant captain when I played and all that stuff. And then the funny part is, and I've told the story many times, but she sits me down. She says, you have a hard time with empathy, Tom. And I swear I was sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, I don't even know what the word means. I've heard the word, but I don't know what it means. So I tried to actually trick her in saying I says, what's your definition of the word empathy? And she laughs at me. She goes, you don't even know what it means, do you? So we had a long discussion about empathy. And that's, I just view that if somebody comes to me with a problem, I guess this is the same thing. Yeah, if somebody comes to me with a problem, I feel I'm going to help fix the problem, right? That I think I'm still empathetic. It's just that but I did see a funny video. I bet you've seen it. It's a video of this woman and her boyfriend or husband sitting on a couch, and they don't show her face at first. It's like half of her face. And she's talking about the stress she's under, and, like she's basically venting to him. And he's got this look on his face, like, like most men, like, okay, I can fix it. I know what the problem is. I can tell you what the problem is, and we can fix it. But he's just thinking, I know I need to keep my mouth shut right now. So then they pan up to her face, and she's got a nail in her forehead. And you can tell he's just dying to say to her, you've got a nail in your forehead. That's the problem. Then he finally says it. He says, I know the problem. You have a nail in your forehead. And she goes, you always do this. You always try to fix the problem. And then he stops and she goes, all my sweaters have got snags in them. And he's just,
because they're, and those kind of traits, those need to fix problems or go in and, like you said, be the sheepdog and kind of, keep everybody together. Those are traits and beliefs about yourself that probably come from something in childhood where, you were the protective one, or you maybe protected a family member, or that maybe you needed protecting and it wasn't there. And so now that's who you are as a person. And this is the interesting thing about childhood things. It can take people on one of two directions, right? Like sometimes our childhood, we're like, oh God, I'm going to be the furthest away from that, so I'm going to go over here. Or we don't understand why we keep going in the same path because of what we experienced as a child. So it really is how the subconscious is protecting you.
Wow, that's
the
amazing.
Subconscious protects everyone in different ways.
Yeah, Jackie was talking about that it's a defense mechanism, right?
The subconscious number one job is to keep us alive, however that is. And right. And I would even go, we talked about addiction a little earlier, and one of the things Dr. Gabor Mate would say was, thank the addiction because it's kept you alive till now. There's been some positive intention of the addiction to keep you alive, because had you not had the addiction, maybe you would have gone down another road. Wow. So whatever, if you're still here, thank your addiction and now work on what caused it, Right. But don't beat yourself up because you've got an addiction to alcohol or drugs or whatever it is.
It's amazing to make me think now. My mother, she's passed away about 25 years ago, but she had told me a story, and I don't remember it. And I grew up on a farm. The school bus would come by. All the kids in the neighborhood would go to the one area. The school bus would come by, and in our group was this young girl who was I can't remember the disease she had, but she was going blind. So the parents all got together and said to the kids, "Okay, everybody's going to take turns getting the young girl on the bus and off the bus every day." And my mother tells the story, like I said, I don't remember it, that I stepped up and said, no, I'll get her on and off the bus every day. So I was like 5 or 6 years old when this happened. So I guess that was during that, 0 to 7, right, where I was framed.
Yes. That's interesting. Yeah. After we were just talking about, I always, even though I know that these things come up from my childhood, when I hear a story like that, I even get amazed. It's like, there's the connection right there.
Wow. And I've told that story before, but I never put it together till you and Jackie brought that up. Wow.
I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
I had a just on that note, I had an interesting client. She was wanting to get over, she was hoarding in her house. And the fact that she even was seeking assistance for this is a big step. But within a short period of time, I found out that she had given up a baby for adoption at 16 under mother's influence. And it was a very painful thing for her, where she had to give away for parents, one of the most important things in our life, our children. And as soon as I made that connection, when she told me that story, and I said, well, I can understand. You gave away, you were forced to give away the most important thing in your life, and now you're not going to give away anything ever again.
Wow.
And she just looked at me with these eyes, and I was just like, and then we went to work on the therapy, and it was just so profound.
You know, one of the biggest, you know, it's interesting you're talking about that stuff. You live it every day. It's for me that I've learned over the last few years is understanding who I am, right? It's like, I think I went through most of my life, and I think a lot of people do, really not even understanding who they are or why they are the way they are, right?
Yeah. And I think that you brought up a good thing earlier about talking about just having a lot of people talking about mental health now and making it more acceptable, and understanding that, you know, we go to the doctor when we have something broken or wrong, but we also go to the doctor just for a mental or a physical checkup, right? Like, especially if we get over 50.
Yeah.
You know, we start going a little more regularly just to make sure everything's good. Well, there's nothing wrong with just booking an appointment to go talk to somebody, even if there isn't anything wrong that you're noticing. Maybe you just want to figure out why you're the way you are. Well, I keep doing this thing. It's not, you know, it's not a big thing, but, and then you get some insight, or you watch shows like this. So thank you for putting on this podcast, because I think that it's really important that people see a new perspective to mental health.
Yeah. And just like I said, realize that there's nothing wrong with you. If you have some mental health issue, doesn't mean that the whole person is messed up. It's just, there's this one issue that you need to deal with. Yeah, I agree. My mother, so we had a farm, we sold our farm. My father was becoming a firefighter, and had to go off to firefighter school. So I guess I must've been early teens or something. And so my sister and I were home with my mother, and she had some kind of a nervous breakdown. We, in those days and on the farm, we never talked about anything. So I never did find out what really happened, but she went for about a year. Like, she just basically broke down, started crying. I mean, there's really nothing going on. And so she went about a year where she barely left the house, if she left the house at all. But I also, like, you know, I guess it's a delicate thing. And like I said, the times were different, but we never talked about it. It was just never, like, you know, my sister and I both witnessed this, and they never sat down. And my parents are fantastic people. I don't want to paint the wrong picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what everyone, when you know that there was maybe something that was not quite right, there was an issue, we as children will always say, don't get me wrong, I love my parents. They'll tell me something over here that's a negative, but we will always protect our parents. And there's one big reason for that. We have two things that we must have, and they are authenticity and attachment. And attachment is going to trump authenticity every time.
Oh.
So as a child, terrible twos, hate the phrase. I'm a grandmother of a 4-year-old, and I'm so glad that when she hit 2, I had already taken this course, because what happens is when that child is starting to, they now can talk, they can walk, they can do all these things. And then we tell them what? No, 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 no. And they say, okay, because mommy's love is more important than me being an individual. So for those of you that have children, my one piece of advice, yes, there are certain boundaries we have to protect our children, but let them express themselves and let them be their authentic self, because it's going to serve them so well in their adulthood.
Wow. It's amazing, right? You know, we have to have a license to drive a car, all these, but to be a parent, you don't have to have a license to be a parent. You know? I
always say to my clients, they didn't pop out of the womb with an owner's manual or operating manual. Like, we don't know what we're doing. No one does, right? We're just doing our best. And where did we learn how to be parents? From our parents, right?
And even now, it's just become such a thing that kids have all got cell phones and iPads and everything, and they're sitting on their iPads all the time. They're not. And it's hard now as a parent to say to your child, no, you're not. You're getting outside and you're going to play. Well, the kid's going to be playing by himself because nobody else is out there, right? I mean,
the environment is just changing, and we have to keep up with it and protect them the best way we can, but understand that, you know, their ways of communication have changed.
Yeah.
You know, I look at, you know, how at our age, even how they changed from our grandparents, right?
Yeah. Have you seen a lot more issues because of the pandemic as well with kids?
Yes. Yeah. And I've been seeing more in that 13 to 16 range. Yeah. With children, actually, one teenager just unable to seem to get back into going into the classroom or going back to school. And so.
Yeah. It's a shame, right? Yeah. We're already in that, like we said, we're already in that phase where it's all computers and phones, and now you add the pandemic to it. So now that's all they're doing. You sit at home in front of
well, one of the interesting things is going to be to see how this affects just humanity in general a few years down the road, right? When the teenagers that were part of this come out, get into their 20s and 30s and see what the mental health environment looks like then.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of parents coming to me wanting me to help their late teens, early 20s kids that are suffering from depression, anxiety. Yeah, they're just, and you get on the phone with them, and then after a while, if you talk to them and start working on things, you can just see that their voice changes. They get more life and everything like that. But they've been stuck in this rut where they feel terrible about themselves. They get on Instagram and Facebook and they see all these beautiful pictures of everybody else, and they're sitting on their couch, not doing anything. So, well, listen, you Canadian, get out, It's Jackie told me that we would have a great time together. We did, and we talked about 15 minutes before the show started too. You and I could talk to each other forever, I think. So
I know, and I just thank you very much for opening up your show to this great topic and educating people. And thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
And I think you and I are going to be together for a few weeks here, aren't we? 3 weeks or so. So
yeah, I'm going to send a note to Jackie that she has been fired, and that we might have to have three of us on a show next time.
Oh my gosh, that would be so great. That would be great.
When she comes back, we'll have the three of us on. So okay, great. It was great. Thank you very much for filling in, and you did a fantastic job. I really enjoyed speaking with you. Very educational.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care. And I'm off to the airport now.
All right. Have a good trip. Talk to you.
Bye-bye.